at what happened to Brendan Fraser. For a lot of people, Brendan Fraser doesn't just remind them of movies. He reminds them of being younger, of staying home on weekends watching adventure films, of family movie nights, of a time when Hollywood still felt a little more innocent. That was Brendan Fraser's strange gift as an actor. He never felt untouchable. He felt familiar, warm, funny, sincere, like someone audiences trusted almost immediately. And for a while, that made him one of the most beloved actors in Hollywood. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Brendan Fraser was everywhere. The Mummy, George of the Jungle, Bedazzled, Journey to the Center of the Earth. He had blockbuster success, global recognition, millions of fans. But unlike many movie stars of that era, Brendan Fraser never projected invincibility. Even in action films, there was always something human about him. He looked scared sometimes, awkward sometimes, emotionally open in ways male actors rarely allowed themselves to be back then. And audiences connected with that immediately, especially during an era where most action heroes were designed to look untouchable. Brendan Fraser felt different. He made adventure movies feel comforting. When The Mummy released in 1999, Brendan Fraser's career exploded almost overnight. The film became a cultural phenomenon. For many people, it wasn't just another action movie. It became part of childhood itself. And Brendan Fraser became permanently attached to that feeling. Fun, adventure, escapism. At his peak, Fraser was one of Hollywood's biggest stars. But success in Hollywood often comes with a hidden cost. And Brendan Fraser was paying for his physically. For years, Fraser performed intense stunt work. Fight scenes, falls, wire sequences, physical comedy, movie after movie after movie. Audiences saw excitement. But behind the scenes, Brendan Fraser's body was slowly deteriorating. Years later, he revealed the damage had become severe. Multiple surgeries, spinal problems, knee procedures, constant physical pain. At one point, Fraser admitted he felt like a horse assembled from different parts. And maybe that's one of the darkest truths about entertainment. Audiences experience 2 hours of escape. Actors sometimes spend years carrying the damage afterward. But the physical pain was only part of what Brendan Fraser was dealing with. His personal life also began falling apart. His marriage ended. The divorce became emotionally and financially draining. At the same time, Fraser started feeling increasingly disconnected from Hollywood itself. And then came the moment that changed him more deeply than most people realized. In 2018, Brendan Fraser publicly revealed that he had allegedly been sexually assaulted by Philip Burke, a former president of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. Fraser later admitted the experience left him feeling depressed and withdrawn. Not angry, not explosive, just emotionally exhausted. He started questioning whether he still belonged in Hollywood at all. And slowly, he disappeared from public life. What made Brendan Fraser's disappearance feel so strange was how quiet it was. There was no massive scandal, no public meltdown, no chaotic tabloid era. One day he was one of Hollywood's biggest stars. And then gradually, the industry moved on without him. Hollywood has a short memory, especially when someone no longer feels commercially valuable. And Brendan Fraser seemed to realize that before audiences did. For years, people online joked about how different he looked, about the weight gain, the aging, the changes in his appearance. But very few people understood what had actually happened to him. Because Brendan Fraser wasn't simply changing physically, he was surviving emotionally. And maybe that's why audiences eventually started reconnecting with him in such an emotional way. People began revisiting old interviews, old movies, old clips from award shows and press tours, and many realized the same thing. Brendan Fraser had always seemed genuinely kind. Not manufactured, not overly polished, just sincere. In an industry often built around image management, Brendan Fraser felt emotionally real, and slowly something unusual started happening online. People didn't just miss Brendan Fraser. They felt guilty for forgetting him. As if the world suddenly realized someone gentle had been quietly suffering in the background for years while everyone else moved on. Then came The Whale, and suddenly Brendan Fraser wasn't just returning to Hollywood. He was returning emotionally in front of the entire world. The performance felt painfully vulnerable at times, not because audiences were watching a character struggle, but because it often felt like they were watching Brendan Fraser himself carry years of exhaustion, loneliness, and emotional weight onto the screen. When standing ovations from film festivals started going viral, the reactions felt unusually personal. People weren't simply applauding a performance. It felt like relief, like audiences were finally welcoming someone back home. And then came the Oscars. When Brendan Fraser won Best Actor, the moment felt bigger than a normal Hollywood comeback story, because audiences remembered the years he disappeared. They remembered how forgotten he once seemed. And now the same industry that once moved on without him was applauding him on its biggest stage. But maybe what affected people most wasn't the award itself. It was Brendan Fraser's reaction. He looked overwhelmed, emotional, grateful, like someone who genuinely never expected to stand there again. Maybe that's why Brendan Fraser's story continues to resonate with so many people. Because it isn't really about fame. It's about what happens when someone spends years giving joy to millions of strangers, while quietly falling apart behind the scenes. Brendan Fraser became famous making audiences feel safe, entertained, and happy. Meanwhile, his body was breaking down. His confidence was disappearing. And his connection to Hollywood was fading piece by piece. For a long time, the world only noticed the comeback, not the survival that came before it. In the end, Brendan Fraser didn't return as the same man audiences remembered from the 1990s. And maybe that's exactly why his comeback felt so emotional, because people weren't just watching a celebrity return. They were watching someone slowly rediscover his place in the world again. And in an industry that often rewards ego, performance, and illusion, Brendan Fraser remained something much rarer. He still felt human. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new videos. See you in the next one.